Hello, and welcome to another video on our channel. We share different stories from people who have had near-death or other spiritual experiences. Today, we will hear about Dylan Peterson's story. He claims he died and learned that we were living a giant deception. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, do so immediately and leave a remark with your name and city. Now let's hear Dylan's testimony. Hello, my name is Dylan Peterson. I am a regular individual living in a city like any other. I am 47 years old. I work as an accountant for a medium-sized firm and live a rather typical life. I've been married to Maria for years. Laura is my younger sister, and Rex, our dog, is essentially part of the family. I've always been cynical, believing only in what people can see and touch: religion, spirituality, and life beyond death. Nothing in this made sense to me. I used to think of life as a basic cycle in which we are born, live, and die. Then something happened that entirely changed my perspective. It was an experience that pushed me to the edge of life and death, challenging everything I thought I knew about reality. That is what I want to talk about today. It's not an easy story to tell, and I confess that I'm still processing a lot of what happened. But I feel it's important to share, because it has fundamentally changed who I am and how I see the world around me. First of all, I want to make it clear that I am not the type of person who seeks attention or who makes up stories to impress others. In fact, I hesitated a lot before deciding to talk about it. I was afraid that people would think I was crazy or wouldn't believe me, but after much reflection I realized that this experience wasn't just about me. It's something that can make people think about their own lives, about what really matters. What I'm going to tell you happened about a year ago. It was a difficult period in my life. I was having problems at work, I had frequent arguments with Maria, and I felt like I was losing control of everything. It was in this context that I made a reckless decision that almost cost me my life. But it was also this decision that took me on an incredible, frightening, and deeply transformative journey. In the coming minutes, I'll tell you what happened that night, and in the days that followed, I'll talk about the dark tunnel I went through, the light I found, the past lives I relived, and the shocking truths I discovered about our existence. It may sound insane. I know if someone had told me anything like this a year ago, I would have laughed and turned away, but now that I've experienced it, I can't ignore or reject it. So, if you are prepared to listen and have an open mind, I ask you to join me on this adventure. I'm not here to persuade anyone or to preach some kind of absolute truth. I'm simply here to share my experience and, who knows, maybe make you think about the nature of our reality. Let me start. It all began on a Friday night. I had returned home from a particularly difficult day at work. Maria and I had a fight earlier that week, and the mood at home was tense. That night, I felt alone, tired, and hopeless. I did something I've never done before. I opened the bathroom C cabinet and took out a bottle of sleeping pills that Maria's doctor had prescribed a few months ago. I also bought some strong painkillers that I used to take for back pain, so I went to the bar and ordered a bottle of whiskey. I know what you're thinking. That's ridiculous. Dylan, how could you do anything like that? Believe me, I ask myself the same question every day. But at the time, I wasn't thinking straight. It was as if a dark cloud had taken over my mind. I just wanted the pain to stop and the emptiness I felt to go away. I sat down on the sofa in the living room, put a handful of pills in my hand, and began to wash them down with large gulps of whiskey. A part of me knew what I was doing was dangerous, but another part didn't care anymore. I remember thinking that if I wake up, what occurred next is a bit unclear. I recall waking up in the middle of the night with a severe ache in my chest. I couldn't breathe correctly. It felt as if an elephant was sitting on my chest. I attempted to rise up, but my body did not respond. I panicked for the first time. I knew what I had done, and I regretted it profoundly. I attempted to cry for aid, but my voice wouldn't come out. All I got was a feeble whimper. Fear came over me. I thought of Maria, my sister Rex. I thought about all the things I still wanted to do in life. I didn't want to die in this way. But then darkness enveloped me again. I felt my body relax, and my consciousness faded. At that point, the real journey began unexpectedly. I wasn't on my couch anymore, and it wasn't anywhere I recognized. I found myself floating in a vast, dark space, as if suspended in a vacuum with no point of reference. Little by little, I noticed that I was moving. It wasn't a physical movement like we're used to. It was more like he was being dragged by an invisible current. It was then that I realized I was in a tunnel. The walls of this tunnel were peculiar. They were not solid like the walls we know. They looked to be composed of a black viscous substance, similar to wet mud. They had an intriguing feel. It was as if they were reaching out to me and urging me to touch them intuitively. I attempted to reach out and touch the tunnel wall. That's when I had the first shock. I had no hands. In fact, he had no body at all. It was just a consciousness floating in that strange space. Time seemed to not exist there. I can't tell if I was in that tunnel for minutes, hours, or days. The sensation was of being out of time in a dimension completely different from our everyday reality. As I progressed through the tunnel, I began to hear sounds. At first they were just distant murmurs impossible to understand, but I continued on into the tunnel. The blackness was practically palpable, yet not frightening. It felt welcome, as if it were a celestial womb transporting me someplace. As I drifted, I had flashbacks of my life. I witnessed scenes from my wedding to Maria. I remembered the day we adopted Rex. I recalled memories from my youth. It seemed as if my entire existence was flashing before my eyes. If I still had eyes at fast speed, it was at that point that I recognized this must be what others term a near-death experience. I always assumed these were made-up stories, exaggerations of individuals wanting attention. Yet there I was living something that challenged everything I considered possible. As I moved down the tunnel, I began to sense a difference. The darkness appeared to be thinning out in the distance. I started to detect a point of light. As I approached the end of the tunnel, the light became more and more intense. It was not an ordinary light like that of the sun or a lamp, but a living, pulsating light that seemed to contain all the energy in the universe. What was most striking was the violent contrast between this light and the darkness around me. It was as if two titanic forces were fighting a fierce battle, the light struggling to expand, while the darkness resisted, trying to swallow it at that moment. On the one hand, there was a strong desire to live and return to Maria, my family, and my life. On the other, there was a weird urge to succumb to the darkness and abandon everything. As I observed this cosmic war, I realized I wasn't simply a spectator. I was somehow involved in the struggle. My every thought and emotion appeared to have an impact on the balance of light and dark. When I focused on joyful memories and moments of love and joy, the light seemed to grow stronger. Yet when thoughts of despair and hopelessness entered my mind, darkness advanced. It was at that moment that I realized this battle was not just about life and death, but also about choice. I could choose light or dark, fight or give up. Realizing this power of choice was both liberating and frightening. Liberating because I realized I had control over my destiny, even in that extreme situation. Scary because the weight of responsibility was immense. As I pondered this, I noticed the light beginning to change. It was no longer just. When the orb of light approached me, I was overcome with a sensation of tranquility and peace that I had never felt before. I heard a voice. It wasn't an external voice, but it appeared to emanate from within me. The oddest part was that it was my own voice, but it was full with insight that I had never had before in my life. The voice began addressing questions I didn't even realize I had. He talked on the meaning of life, the purpose of existence, and the nature of the cosmos before revealing something that surprised me. "Everything you know as reality is a simulation," the voice explained. "The physical world, time, and space are all part of a vast fabrication designed to keep us from recognizing the actual essence of life." This information surprised me. "What do you mean by a simulation that didn't make sense, yet seemed real?" It was as if a veil had been lifted from my eyes, allowing me to see beyond the corporeal world's illusions. The voice continued. "You people are locked in this simulation, thinking it is the entire reality, yet there is much more to it. You are multidimensional entities, capable of existing in numerous universes simultaneously." I attempted to assimilate this knowledge. It was too much for my small intellect to handle, but the sphere of light appeared to understand my uncertainty. It grew, totally engulfing me in the brightness. Everything became clearer. I saw the universe's structure, and how everything is interrelated. I realized how our activities impacted not only the environment around us, but the entire fabric of existence. I discovered that what we call ourselves is merely a little fraction of who we truly are. Our actual nature is more broader and more expansive than we can conceive in our physical life. The light showed me that death, as we know it, does not exist. It is simply a transition, a change of state. Our consciousness evolves and expands. I was amazed by these revelations, but I was also sad. Sad that I had lived so long without knowing these truths. Sad that I had wasted so much time and energy on things that I now realized were completely insignificant. But the light consoled me. It showed me that every experience, every mistake, every moment of joy or sadness has a purpose. Everything is part of our growth, our evolution as conscious beings. The light began to withdraw, and I felt as if my time in that condition was coming to an end. But before going, the voice taught me one more thing. Remember that you are much more than you believe you are, and you have the ability to mold your reality. Apply this knowledge carefully. With those words, the light went out, and I was back in the dark tunnel. But I wasn't the same. Following my encounter with the sphere of light, I gained knowledge that would change my life. I felt different. It was as if I had gained a new perspective, a deeper understanding of existence. But I didn't have much time to dwell on it, because I was quickly enveloped by a new experience. Suddenly, my entire existence flashed before my eyes. It wasn't like in movies, when scenes whiz by in fast succession. It was far more intense and detailed. I was experiencing every significant event in my life, but not as a spectator. I was there and felt everything. Again, I saw myself as a youngster, enjoying the simple pleasure of playing in the park with my parents. I felt the anxiousness of my first day of school, the joy of my first kiss, and the pleasure of being admitted to college. But it wasn't all positive memories. I also relived the anguish, the losses, and the moments of disappointment and grief. The most striking part was that I wasn't just reliving my own emotions. When I was good to someone, I could sense the influence my actions had on their lives. I could sense the appreciation and comfort I gave, even when I was selfish or harsh. I sensed the agony and hurt I had inflicted. I remember the day I clashed with Maria and shouted harsh things that affected her badly. I had no idea how much I had injured her at the time, but now I could feel his agony as if it were my own. It was heartbreaking. I also noticed instances where I performed modest acts of kindness without recognizing it. I once helped an old woman cross the street. It seemed minor at the time, but now I could see how that little act had brightened her day and given her hope in mankind. This life review has taught me how intertwined we all are. Every action and word has an influence that is considerably greater than we can fathom. I witnessed a sequence of events that resulted from my decisions impacting others. I had no idea it was a humbling and enlightening experience. I realized how many opportunities to do good I had squandered, and how many times I had acted out of fear or selfishness, rather than love and compassion. But it wasn't a judgmental experience. There was no punishment or reward. It was simply an opportunity to learn about the consequences of my actions in a way that had never been possible before. By the end of this review, I felt emotionally exhausted, but also deeply transformed. I had a new appreciation for life and a new understanding of the responsibility that comes with every choice we make. As this experience came to an end, I felt a sense of expansion. It was as if my consciousness was opening, preparing for something even greater. And that was when I entered the next phase of my journey. Just when I thought nothing could surprise me anymore, I was thrown into an even. The gunfire resonated around the room, and everything became dark. The scene has altered. I was a whaler in the 19th century. I was on a boat, surrounded by the enormous ocean. I smelled the sea. I heard the sailors' tears. I found myself harpooning whales, feeling a combination of enthusiasm for the chase and tremendous sorrow for killing these gorgeous creatures. Life ended on a beach. I was an elderly guy gazing out to sea, and with 2 children by my side, I felt a big weight on my heart, a deep guilt for all the lives I had stolen and the devastation I had done to the ocean. I glanced into my children's eyes and saw a combination of affection and disappointment. I discovered that my decisions in that life had an impact not just on me, but also on individuals I cared about. These former incarnations revealed patterns that repeated themselves in each one. I realized that my selfish or inconsiderate behaviors have far-reaching effects. I observed how the agony I inflicted in one life left scars in the next. But I also witnessed acts of love, courage, and sacrifice. I observed lives in which I had made a difference, assisted people, and left the world a bit better than I found it. This incident made me realize that our trip is more longer and more complicated than we think. We are the sum of countless existences, each of which teaches us valuable lessons. I recognize that my current existence is only one chapter in a much larger tale. Due to the problems I have in my relationships, I have a propensity to become depressed. Everything has deeper roots than I can comprehend. Imagine at the end of this journey through past lives, I felt both small and immense, at the same time small compared to the vastness of time and the experiences he had lived immense, by the awareness that I am more than just this body, this personality, this life. I came away from this experience with a new understanding of the responsibility we have. Every action, every choice, not only affects this life, but echoes through time, shaping our future incarnations in the lives of those around us. After the past life journey, I was abruptly brought back to the present, but I wasn't back in my body. Instead, I found myself floating above him, watching the scene of my near suicide as if I were a spectator. I saw my body inert on the couch, the bottle of whiskey lying on the floor, the empty medicine bottles on the coffee table. The scene was desolate, but what really shocked me was seeing the impact of my action on the lives of the people I loved. I saw Maria coming home after work. Calling my name the moment she found me was devastating. I noticed the horror in his eyes. I heard his desperation yell. She raced to the phone, her hands trembling as she phoned 911. I watched as paramedics arrived, working feverishly to resuscitate me. Maria was weeping, asking me not to die. I felt your agony, anxiety, and rage because I had done something so selfish. The scenery shifted. I witnessed my sister Laura receive the news. His face was filled with astonishment and amazement, which quickly turned to wrath. "How could he have done this to us?" she yelled. I recognized that my actions were a betrayal of everyone who loved me. In the days that followed, I noticed Rex, my loyal canine buddy, lying next to the sofa, whimpering gently. I watched as he got despondent, refusing to eat, and waited for my return. It was sad to discover that my careless action had also harmed my puppy. The scenes continued to unfold. I saw the funeral in case I didn't survive. Maria dressed in black with an empty look, my parents aged by pain, friends and co-workers, all trying to understand why I had done it. But what impressed me most was seeing the future that would never happen, if I died. I saw Maria years later still struggling to overcome my loss. I saw my niece, who hadn't yet been born, growing up without knowing her uncle. I saw projects I would have accomplished. People I was. The force pushing me up was strong, almost unstoppable. Part of me wanted to give up and face the unknown, but the pictures of Maria's pain and Laura's Rexy's kept me grounded. I knew my life was more than simply mine. It was a gift and a duty. Every person we love and every life we touch becomes a part of who we are sacrificing. It would not only touch me, but it would send waves of anguish far beyond my imagination. With this awareness, I made a decision. I battled the power tugging me, remembering all the reasons I wanted to live. I thought of Maria, our life together, and the aspirations we had yet to accomplish. I thought about Laura, and how much I wanted to see my niece born and develop. I remembered Rex, devoted and kind, waiting for my return. Then, with a jolt that resonated throughout my soul, I felt myself drawn back into my body. Returning to my body was an event I'll never forget. It was like being swept into a cyclone and then dumped into frigid waters. Suddenly, I felt a massive weight on my chest, like if every cell in my body was screaming in protest. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was Maria's face covered in tears. She was clutching my hand, her gaze locked on me, a mixture of dread and hope all around me. I heard mechanical noises and furious voices. I was in an ambulance. I attempted to speak, but my throat felt dry and scratchy. All I heard was a feeble whimper. Maria screamed with excitement and relief. "He's awake!" she cried to the paramedics. The following few seconds were a haze. I recall being hurried to the hospital. Doctors and nurses rushed about me, asking questions I couldn't comprehend. I went through a variety of examinations and procedures. My stomach was pumped to eliminate any remnants of the medicines I had consumed. I spent many days in the ICU. The doctor stated I was really lucky. If Maria had arrived home a few minutes later, I probably wouldn't have lived. My body had been severely shocked, and it would take time to fully heal. But physical rehabilitation was only one aspect of the process. The true trip had just begun. Once I was stable enough, I began receiving visits from psychiatrists and psychologists. I was diagnosed with severe depression and started extensive treatment. The first several weeks were challenging, and my memories of the near-death experience were disjointed and hazy. I questioned if it was all genuine or just a hallucination created by a combination of medication and booze. A part of me wanted to think it was simply a strange dream, but deep down I knew it was more. As my thoughts cleared, I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I remembered the dark tunnel and the dazzling light of former lives I'd seen. Each recollection triggered a surge of powerful emotions. Initially, I was afraid to discuss these events with my therapist. I was scared they'd think I was insane, but I gradually began giving minor facts, and to my amazement, they didn't criticize me. Instead, They encouraged me to explore these memories as part of the healing process. Maria was my rock throughout this time. She spent hours by my side in the ICU, patiently listening as I attempted to express what I had gone through. Sometimes I sobbed for no apparent cause, and other times he remained motionless, lost in meditation. She was always by my side, unwaveringly supportive. My sister Laura was also always present. She was first outraged with me for attempting to commit myself, but her rage eventually gave way to understanding and support. Our chats helped me comprehend a lot of what I had been through while I healed physically. I began to experience tremendous shifts in my perspective on life. Money status and professional accomplishment, which had previously been so crucial, suddenly looked minor in comparison to what I had experienced. I began to cherish the small things more. Maria's grin in the morning, Rex's devotion, the sound of rain on the window. Every moment seemed valuable, and every connection with another person offered the possibility to make a difference. As the days moved into weeks, and the weeks into months, I resumed my healing path. It was a non-linear process. There were terrible days filled with uncertainty and worry, but there was also a new power within me, a drive born of the profound insight I had learned. I knew I'd been given a second shot, and I wasn't going to waste it. It has been a year since that tragic night, and my life has changed in ways I could not have predicted. The near-death experience did not endow me with superpowers or unusual talents, but it did provide me with something far more valuable, a fresh perspective on life and existence. Before I became an obsessive skeptic, he refused to believe in anything that could not be scientifically demonstrated. To me, God, the spirit, reality, and life after death were all fantasies and superstitions. Although I have not become religious in the traditional sense, I do have a renewed respect for the spiritual side of life. I discovered that there is far more to the cosmos than we can perceive or comprehend with our limited senses. I no longer disregard the concept that we live in a simulation and are more than our physical body. I retain an open mind, acknowledging that the cosmos contains mysteries that science cannot yet explain. My friendship with Maria has grown in ways I never thought imaginable. We went through a terrible period following my suicide attempt, but together we discovered new strength. We now enjoy every minute together, mindful of how valuable and delicate life is at work. Previously, my mindset had entirely altered. I was constantly worried, seeking the next big transaction or promotion. Now I get joy from doing my job successfully and assisting my coworkers. My manager observed the shift and recently gave me a leadership position based on my new, more balanced and caring attitude, rather than my desire. One of the most significant shifts was in my connection with my sister Laura. After realizing the impact my death would have had on her, I made a concerted attempt to reach out. Now we're closer than ever. When my niece was born months ago, it was one of the best times in my life. Holding that little person in my arms reminded me of how precious life is. I began practicing meditation and mindfulness practices to help me stay focused and engaged in the present moment. I also began volunteering at a nearby shelter, feeling compelled to give back and improve the lives of others. I won't lie and pretend that everything is fine now. I still have awful days filled with uncertainty and worry. The depression has not totally subsided, but I now have better skills for dealing with it. I recognize that my ideas and feelings do not define me. They are simply a part of who I am. One of the most essential truths I've learned is that we always have a choice in how we respond to life's challenges, treat people, and live each day. This insight gave me a sense of power and responsibility that I had never experienced before. I also began to notice more clearly the falsehoods and illusions that pervade our society. I understand how the media, advertising, and political and economic structures frequently exploit us, but rather than making me feel hopeless or cynical, it inspires me to live more truly and deliberately. I'm not sure what the future holds. I don't have all the answers, and I'm continuously learning and developing every day. But I know that each day is a chance to make a difference by loving more profoundly and living more fully. My near-death experience taught me that life is too valuable to be wasted on fear, anger, or regret. Every minute is a gift, every encounter a chance for development. And while I don't know what happens beyond death, I do know that the way we conduct our lives has far-reaching consequences. So here I am. Peterson, an ordinary man who had an extraordinary experience. I am not a guru or a saint. I am simply someone who had the opportunity to look beyond the veil and return to tell the story. And if there is one message I'd like to share with the world, it is to live each day with purpose and love, because in the end, that is what truly matters. So what do you think of this fantastic story? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to receive notifications for each new video. Let us give more people hope that there is life beyond what our eyes can see.
I never really thought about what happens after we die. As an accountant, my world was all about numbers, spreadsheets, and the occasional office drama. But on a regular Tuesday afternoon, my life took a sudden and unexpected turn. One moment, I was sitting at my desk, sipping coffee and poring over year-end reports. The next, I felt an intense, crushing pressure in my chest. At first, I thought it was just stress, but within minutes, the pain was unbearable. I tried to call out for help, but my voice was trapped inside me. The last thing I remember seeing was my coffee mug tipping over, spilling across my neatly arranged papers. And then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, or at least when I became aware again, everything felt different. The pain was gone. In fact, I didn't feel anything. I was floating in this vast, endless space, like a void, but not entirely dark, and definitely not light either. It was a strange, surreal place that felt like nothingness. Yet it was filled with an overwhelming sense of calm. I wasn't afraid. If anything, I felt more at peace than I'd ever felt in my life. Suddenly, I heard a voice. George. It didn't come from any particular direction. It was as if it echoed from everywhere at once, surrounding me. I thought I must be imagining things. Who's there? I tried to say, but I quickly realized I wasn't speaking. My mouth wasn't moving. Somehow, my thoughts were projecting outward. We have been waiting for you, the voice responded. It was gentle, soothing, and warm. Almost as soon as I heard it, a brilliant point of light appeared in front of me. It was small at first, like a distant star, but it grew larger and brighter as it came closer. Or maybe I was moving toward it. I couldn't tell. There was no sense of time or space, just the light getting bigger until it completely enveloped me. And then, all at once, I was surrounded by this incredible, intense love and acceptance, as if every positive emotion I had ever experienced was concentrated into a single powerful moment. Am I dead? I asked, although deep down, I already knew the answer. Yes, in the earthly sense, the voice replied, but death is merely a transition. Your journey is far from over. The light began to take shape, transforming into something almost, but not quite, human. It was a being of pure energy, radiating wisdom and compassion. "Who are you?" I asked, captivated by its presence. "I am a guide," it said. "I am here to help you understand the true nature of your existence and why souls like you come to Earth." As the guide spoke, the endless void around us began to change. I was no longer floating in empty space. Instead, I found myself surrounded by a vast cosmic tapestry. I could see galaxies spinning, stars being born and collapsing into themselves, and planets filled with life. I had this sense that I was witnessing something magnificent, something far bigger than anything I could ever comprehend. "The universe is alive, George," the guide said, as if reading my thoughts. "Everything in it is connected, and every living thing has a purpose. But Earth is special." I was struggling to process what I was seeing. Special? How? "Earth is a school," the guide continued, "a place where souls come to learn, to grow, and to evolve." As it spoke, more images flashed before my eyes. I saw the entire span of human history unfold, like I was fast-forwarding through a movie. There were ancient civilizations rising and falling, incredible acts of kindness, and unspeakable atrocities. I saw moments of profound discovery, of people reaching out to each other, and also moments of isolation, fear, and despair. "But why?" I asked, my mind racing to keep up. "Why do we need to learn these lessons? Why come to Earth to suffer?" The guide's form shifted slightly, flickering between different appearances. Sometimes human, sometimes something else entirely. Because in your natural state, here in this realm, you are infinite. You have all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the power you could ever need. But growth, true growth, comes from limitation. Souls come to Earth to forget, to face challenges, to struggle, and, through that struggle, to learn. I felt like my mind was being stretched to its limits. I had so many questions, but I couldn't find the words. As if sensing my confusion, the guide began to show me more. I saw Earth from above, and then I was suddenly pulled down, closer to the surface, where I could see people living their lives, laughing, crying, loving, and fighting. It was like I was experiencing the full range of human emotion all at once. "Earth is a realm of duality," the guide said, its voice echoing in my mind. "Good and evil, love and hate, joy and sorrow. It is through experiencing these contrasts, through making choices in the face of uncertainty, that souls grow in ways they cannot in the spiritual realm." I watched as people went about their daily lives, making choices, big and small, each one leading them down a different path. Some choices led to happiness, others to pain. But every choice, every experience, was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become more than they were before. "You see, George," the guide continued, "the true reason souls come to Earth is to experience limitation. In this realm, you are infinite, unbounded by time or space. But on Earth, you must face challenges, and it is through overcoming those challenges that your soul grows." Suddenly, I understood. It wasn't just about learning. It was about experiencing everything, the highs and the lows, the light and the dark. That's what made life on Earth so precious. The guide then showed me a great cycle of souls. I watched as they came to Earth, lived their lives, faced struggles, and then returned to this cosmic realm. With each cycle, the souls grew brighter, their energy more complex, as if they were collecting experiences, lessons, and emotions. "You are all part of a greater whole," the guide said. "Each soul that comes to Earth adds to the collective consciousness. You are, in essence, co-creators of the universe. I saw how every action, every thought, every emotion had a ripple effect. It was like watching a single drop of water create waves across an endless ocean. Your purpose, the guide said, is to grow, to learn, and to create. Through your choices, your actions, your very thoughts, you are constantly shaping reality. It all sounded so beautiful, so perfect, but I couldn't help but think about all the suffering I had seen. But why do we have to suffer? I asked. Why do we have to go through so much pain? Pain is a teacher, the guide answered. It is through overcoming challenges that the greatest growth occurs. Just as muscles grow stronger with resistance, the soul grows stronger through adversity. I was shown images of some of the darkest moments in human history. Wars, famines, heartbreaks. But alongside them, I saw the incredible acts of courage, compassion, and resilience that those moments had inspired. The contrast between joy and sorrow, ease and difficulty, allows for a depth of experience that is impossible in a realm of pure bliss, the guide said. It is through this full spectrum of experience that souls truly evolve. I could feel myself being pulled back, even though I didn't want to leave. There were still so many questions, so much more I wanted to understand. Do I have to go back? I asked, almost pleading. It's not your time yet, George, the guide said. Your journey on Earth is not complete, but remember this, you are there to learn, to grow, and to create, and most importantly, to love. For love is the energy that binds all of creation. It is through love that the greatest growth occurs. The guide's form began to dissolve back into the light, and I felt that same sense of peace and love wash over me one last time. Remember, it said, you are not just living a life, you are participating in the expansion of the universe itself. And then, with a jolt, I was back in my body. I gasped, feeling the harsh cold of the floor against my skin, the taste of electricity on my tongue from the defibrillator. I was surrounded by paramedics, and they were shouting, but I could barely hear them. My mind was still reeling from everything I had just experienced. Now that you have seen what really happens when you die and why we suffer on Earth, you have to watch how a man died and saw when the Antichrist comes. It's sooner than you think. Click the video on your screen now to hear this shocking account, and we'll see you in the next video.